I felt so fortunate to have my dad, Lew Herndon, and my stepmom, Susan, come to visit recently. And as we were talking about life experiences, the subject of owning your own business and being an entrepreneur came up. Both of them owned their own businesses separately in the same household for almost 40 years. The wisdom that they have is evident. And the example that they set for me was huge as I was growing up. And then as I myself became an entrepreneur and owner of a home-based business in direct selling, I realized that business is business, no matter what kind of business you own. And business principles are very consistent through any kind of business. I asked them when they were visiting if they would consider recording a podcast with me. And at first they both shied away as they didn't understand what a podcast really was because they'd never listened to one and what the process would entail. As soon as I explained to them what and how it would be done, they jumped on board as the risk takers and visionaries that they were and are still to this day, even though both are retired now. I think you will totally enjoy and learn from my parents, as I have throughout my life. Enjoy this very special and historic Cuppa with the Queen podcast. Hey, this is Jeri Taylor-Swade, and I am welcoming you to another in the series of a Cuppa with the Queen podcast. Today, I feel so privileged to be able to introduce you to my dad, Lew Herndon, and my stepmom, Susan Herndon. They've been married for how long now? 51 years. And they are here visiting me in Washington State, and I said, Dad and Sue, I would really like if you would consider being on my podcast because they both have been entrepreneurs most of their life, most of their married life. Mm-hmm. They've been entrepreneurs together, but also separately. They both had their own businesses. So in direct sales and in network marketing, business is business, and business principles are the same no matter what business you own. And I was fortunate enough for my dad to be on a webinar with my team this morning, and they got to hear some of his wise advice. And as he was talking, I was thinking about how much everything he said applied to our industry of direct sales and network marketing. So Dad and Sue, thank you so much for being here. And Susan's like, I don't know what to say. I'm like, yes, you do. You know exactly what to say. Once we get started, she is a very wise woman, and she worked really, really hard to build up her business. And so Dad, what was your business and what did you do?
Our business was selling games and puzzles.
Board games, right?
Board games and puzzles.
Board games and puzzles?
Yes.
And you had that business for
34 years.
And you sold it?
I was fortunate enough to sell it, yes.
Yes. And then didn't you stay on as a consultant for a couple of years after that?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
And the business is still going.
That is amazing. After all that time, those games are still being produced, and you were the one that started that company.
Yes.
And you told us today that there was a lot of ups and downs and
definitely
a lot of hard times and, and all that. And then Susan, what did you do? What was your business?
I owned a sign shop that I ran out of my garage for how many years? 40 years. And I was an art major in school. And when it got to be college time, I just couldn't figure out what direction to use my art talents. And until I went to work later on, years later, at a country club and saw that they had a big need for signs advertising their events. The signs they used were just pathetic, and I thought, I think I can do better than that. And so I told my boss, and he said I could do a luau sign for him that weekend for an event, and if he didn't like it, I was fired.
Oh, whoa, that's pressure. Wow.
No pressure there.
Yeah, really.
So I went home, I spent a whole weekend, and I still have the layout for that.
Do you really?
Sign, yeah. Oh, yeah. That was big in my memory. And I worked all weekend and did a luau sign. He liked it. I got hired, and then I had to figure out how to learn lettering.
So did you go to school after that?
Yeah, I could do the graphics, the cartooning, the color, the layout, but lettering I didn't, and I had been using stencils up to then, which is a slow process. It's not how you do signs. So I found out by the grace of God through another distributor that they were teaching a sign painting class at Los Angeles Trade Technical School. So I went there at night for 3 years, and I was with, my daughter Jeri went with me for a while, and then she said, I don't want to be a sign painter, and she quit. But by then I knew how to get to the school and back home, so I was good. But I was with 35 other men, and 5 of us graduated. And we learned all the tricks and trades of how to, hand paint letters. And it's very difficult. There's like a 5-year apprenticeship to get into business with that. So a lot of people don't want to put that much time into it.
Right. Well, anytime, I find that anytime you want your business to thrive and be something that's sustainable for a long time, it takes time. It's effort. It takes time. It takes energy. It takes learning. It takes becoming better at what you do and all of that. And what's interesting is you said that you started out with 35 people and only 5 graduated, which I think is amazing. But hand-painted signs are they're unique nowadays because of all of the technology that people have and stuff like that too. Right. So you had an amazing, some of the signs she did were fabulous. And I remember as I was growing up seeing you in the garage painting signs every day. And so you had a home-based business.
Yes.
And you were the provider, and you were like a direct seller. Well, you had the product, you sold it.
What's funny too is that you can't care about what other people think when you're in a position like that, because I don't know how many years I did it at our other home, painted signs in the garage, and I don't think any of my neighbors, very few of them even knew what I did.
Oh, really?
And even the ones that did know didn't understand it.
Because you never had a sign out or anything.
No.
You just were in your garage working.
No, right.
Yeah.
So, but it was a lot of fun. Every job was different. Every customer was different. And I was very grateful to be able to do it.
Well, I just think it's amazing that you were an entrepreneur, and between the two of you, when you guys got married, you had 6 kids. And you were an entrepreneur, and so you didn't depend on anybody but yourself to make an income. And Dad was the same way. Dad, you started that game company not knowing anything. Like, you put a lot of money into it and time and effort. You didn't know if it was going to succeed. So what did you do at the beginning to try to get it to succeed? And I remember this morning you said, when we were talking on the team call, that you said belief in the product is probably one of your biggest things.
Definitely. You have to do a good job, you have to fully believe in the product that you're selling. And I did. We had a product called the Ungame, which we ultimately, by the time I sold the company, we had sold about 3 million copies of. And
3 million is a lot.
Yeah. It was a very unusual product. It was a non-competitive communication game, and there was no, we like to say everybody was a winner with improved communication, so there were no losers.
Right.
And that in itself was a very unique product, and we had to, mostly by trial and error, find the proper place to market the product and get the customer base and all that.
So, Dad, when you say get your customer base, did you know how to do it? Like, did you know how to market, or was it all trial and error? Did you learn anything from somewhere else, or did you just say, I'm going to do this and you're going to figure it out?
Well, we had basically had started another business selling, creating and selling audiovisual training materials for the healthcare field. So we had kind of a base income coming in. But when we got into the game business, and I had had experience in marketing that type of product in the past, so when we got into the game business, it was all brand new, and I had to research how to make the games, how to get the different kinds of components for the games, and how to buy equipment to shrink wrap the games and all of that. Plus, then I had to determine how to market the games, and that was the biggest challenge, and as it generally always is.
Right.
And
where do you find your customers? What did you do to start finding customers?
Well, there was a educational component to the game, or an educational value, I should say, and so we started talking to various schools about the product and how that could be used in those schools,
and to the teachers as well.
And to the teachers, yes, and subsequently it became obvious that I needed to talk to educational supply stores, and there also was an entertainment value to the games, so I started talking to toy stores, just going to individual mom and pop types of stores, and it just grew from there.
So when you are talking, I'm thinking of direct sales and network marketing, and I'm thinking of when we talk about find your niche, and what you were doing is finding your niche, right, with your product.
Exactly.
You were finding who it was going to benefit from the product that you had.
Exactly.
And then it kind of spread out from there, but
filling a need.
Yes. Right. And when you said this morning that you felt like your product, you believed in your product so much, don't you think that belief is what got you through some of the hard times when you knew you had something that people needed and wanted? You just had to find a way to get it out there.
Definitely. Yes, I had in the past had some communication problems. Got a divorce. I did some self-introspection and did a lot of reading and exploration on why and how that happened and so on. And so I was very interested in communication. And that, when the lady who created the Ungame brought it to us, she had called it Tell It Like It Is. And when she brought it to us, we renamed it the Ungame and repackaged it and so on. But I just fell in love with the concept. And
I remember we played it so much as a kid, and even my husband and I, when we met, we played the couples version before we got married. And you learn so much about someone when you play the Ungame.
Exactly.
But I like the fact that it's called the Ungame, and why you named it that is because there are no winners or losers. You don't win the game if you play it, although what you do win is learning how to communicate better and learning to understand the people that you play with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they still sell that, right?
It's still for sale, yes.
Yeah, it's a great. They have new versions of couples and Christian version and teenage version, I think.
You're right.
Some different versions like
Right.
that. So, were there any really hard times when you felt like you just wanted to say, "Screw it, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore"? Or Susan, did you, as his wife, say, "We just need to be over this and get on to something else"? I mean, there's got to be, because every entrepreneur, I don't care who it is or what business you're in, if you're in business for yourself, there's going to be days, no matter how much you love it. Yeah, there's heartbreak, and there's times when you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to quit. But what is it that makes someone keep going? And Dad, you said persistence. What is it that keeps someone going, that makes them not want to quit? And why is it that some people do quit and some people don't? What do you think? What's the difference? Susan, what do you think?
we both had had a lot of other jobs before the final job, and we both wanted to do what we were doing.
You wanted to do what you love to do, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you just know in your heart that you're doing what you're meant to do. And during some of those heartbreaking times when there was disappointments, we'd take big long walks around our tract at night many, many times, you know, to blow off steam. But I don't think either one of us ever questioned what we were doing and thought that we were going to quit at any time. It just wasn't going to happen.
So, Dad, what about you?
Well, I think that, there were many, many hard times. Times when you have to really scramble and really, really hustle and work harder than you've already been working. And those kinds of times are when it's really trying. But in terms of what kept me going, there was just kind of a need to keep going, a primal need almost to keep going.
You just didn't want to give up.
I didn't want to give up. I felt that we could attain a certain level of success, which we did. We never became the biggest game company in the world. In fact, I at one time called our motto for our game company was the biggest little game company in the world.
Oh, that was your mission statement, kind of, in a way, or your
yes,
motto.
kind of
motto.
Yes, and just to kind of position us in the marketplace.
And so you use that for marketing.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yes.
I saw him get out of bed one morning and get dressed to catch a plane, to go to New York to work a trade fair. White as a sheet, sick as a dog, but he did it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, things just didn't stop us.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
it was just determination.
It's you're determined and you don't let things stop you.
Yep, and you have a lot of people you'll disappoint if anything happens to your business and you aren't successful. And then the true challenge is when you become moderately successful and you're on the right path, not to let it go to your head, not to become somebody that you're not, to stay in the same mindset you always had. You know.
Yes, and not let it get to your head.
Mm-mm. Because
And make wise
good
decisions.
luck, good fortune comes and goes. You know, orders come and go.
Right, orders come and go.
Yeah.
That's true. So, Dad, there was a time I know that financially you thought, because I don't know if it was the stock market, I don't know exactly what the deal was, but I just remember that there was a time when you thought that financially you were going to go under and that you're going to lose everything. And here you've got 6 kids to support, a wife, family, and all the people that worked for you. So in those kind of situations, when you're a true entrepreneur, what do you do? Like, what do you do when you think you're going to lose it, and you've got to, if you're not a quitter and you know you're going to try to get through this, what are the things that you had to do?
Work harder.
Work harder.
Explore more opportunities. Just keep digging. Just keep digging, really. And I was very fortunate to have Susan by my side to help me through those periods.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, again, it was belief in the product and I guess belief in myself too, that I would find a way through this difficult period.
So did you always believe in yourself, or did that take time?
No, that took time. I had worked many different jobs, way too many to mention here, but I became the marketing manager for a company, and the company was sold to a larger company, and everything kind of went on hold, as it does when there's the transfer of an ownership of a company. And I was pushing to keep things going, and the owners were saying, we can't, we can't do those kinds of things right now. And finally, one of the owners took me aside and said, Lew, you should be running your own company.
Oh.
And this was a thought that I had never had before, really. Not, I guess I'd had some inklings, but I never really had put it in those words specifically, and I'd never had anybody say that to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I respected this man quite a bit, and that stuck in the back of my head. Ultimately, because the new company was bought out, I was let go. And some of the other people in the company were let go also. They were on the product development side. I was in the marketing side. And they had developed a kind of a competitive product to what we had been doing. And they didn't know how to package it. They didn't know how to market it, anything like that. And so they called me and asked me if I would come join them, which I did. And that was how our whole company started. And ultimately, I bought out all the other people in the all the other owners of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was on my own.
Yeah, that's a scary place to be sometimes when you're on your own. But what I heard you say, which I think is really important, is that there's always someone. Like, you never usually do something on your own without someone saying something that gives you encouragement, right?
Exactly.
And like, I know that you encouraged Susan to get her sign company started.
Yes.
And you helped her a lot with deliveries and setting things up for her so she could do the large signs, and it's a team effort. But it seems to me like sometimes, most of the time, the people that I've talked to, it's something or someone that actually gives you that first inkling of belief that you can really do this.
Yes.
And then as you start to do it, you start gaining that belief yourself that you can do it. And the more you do it, the more confident you get, to where you've got that, confidence to face the world, so to speak. And personal development, we talked about this morning, is personal development is huge. When you own your own business and when you're an entrepreneur, the buck stops here. So you have to learn how to be a better person, right?
I studied way more after I started the business than I did before.
Studied about personal development?
Personal development and just so many things. I had to learn, like I say, how to do the manufacturing process. I had to learn how to market the product. Mm-hmm. I had to learn how to handle people properly. I remember one time, fairly early on, I had probably 12 or so people working for me, 12 or 15 people, and something had gone wrong, and I don't remember the specifics, but I do remember that I got quite angry, and I let that anger come out, and the rest of the week, that whole next week, you could hear a pin drop almost anywhere in the company. I mean, I didn't realize that my attitude had that much impact on so many people.
Oh.
And that was a big learning experience for me. So from that point forward, regardless of what the situation was, I thought very carefully about how I would present my my ideas or how to correct certain things or whatever. How you talk to people is so important, and because when you get the wrong reaction or a negative reaction from people, it just works so much against you.
Right, right. That's true. And in any business, I think that's true.
Exactly.
You know, and what about customer service? Susan, I know that you were big on customer service. As an entrepreneur, customer service is huge because your customers are your gold, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what did you do? Like, what are the things that you did that you thought your customers were so endeared to you, really? A lot of them were.
Well, one thing, I don't know if this is customer service, it was service. I had the children that was still at our home were learning to drive. They were my sign delivery people. They learned how to get to the country clubs and deliver the signs, collect the money, and it was a good learning process for them.
Right.
But
and the fact that you involved them in the family business.
Right. They understood it. They had to answer the phone, signs by Susan, and they hated that. That was, something they all hated to do. But again, they had to do it. It was part of the business. It's what put the food on the table,
And if a customer wasn't totally happy with your job, you would bring it back and correct it or do it all over.
That day. Yeah. And that's the whole thing I learned about a lot of different businesses that are out there, and the people that own them, they don't respect the word service, or they're not even interested in giving it. And it's something working for my dad and his paint store growing up and all. I learned a lot about that. And
Did your dad
it was.
own the paint store?
Yeah. Mm-hmm, he
So
sure
you
did.
came from a family of entrepreneurs because your dad was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about your grandparents? Were they entrepreneurs or?
My grandmother was a homemaker and my grandfather was a salesman for his brother's hardware store.
So that was a family-owned business as well.
Yeah, and there was a lot of hard times in that. But one thing I learned as the years went on, if I got a call from somebody to come out and give a bid on a job, I did it. If I said I was going to be there, I was there. And the majority of the people I went to visit to see what we could do about getting something working, the other 4 or 5 sign painters that said they were going to be there never showed up to give a bid.
Show up to go up.
Never did. They just didn't bother. They didn't call. They didn't come and show up. Sometimes I would get the job, sometimes I would not, but I'd always be there.
That is huge. I think that's huge. In our business, in my industry of direct sales, that's huge because your word is so important. And I don't think a lot of people really understand how important that really is. If you say you're going to do something, my thing is by hell or high water, I'm going to do it. And if I can't do it, I will find someone to take my place.
Right.
Because you just don't say you're going to do something because then people don't trust you.
Right.
People do business with people that they know, like, and trust.
And they refer you to other people.
Right. And they won't refer
No.
you. Even if you did a good sign, they wouldn't have referred you if they didn't know you could be trusted.
Trustworthy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got kind of hopefully an interesting example.
Yes.
At one time, we had a box manufacturer that did most of our game boxes, and we had a very big order come in for our games, so I had to order a huge amount of boxes, and the problem was that the customer ultimately cut the order in half. So I had this huge amount of inventory, and I owed my supplier for it. And before the bill became due, I made an appointment with him, and I went into his office and told him that things hadn't worked out exactly the way I had determined, and I presented him with a payment plan to get the bill paid over a little longer period of time. and he sat back in his chair and he said, "Lew," he says, "I've been in business 30 years." And he said, "You're the first person that has ever told me that I had a collection problem before I had to find out the hard way." And he said, whatever you want to do, that's fine. And from that point on, anything I asked was given to me pretty much.
Well, that's a great story. I never heard that story. So you owed money and you knew you couldn't pay it because you had somebody not hold up to their bargain. You made a contract they ordered. And that's really great that you sort of hit it head on. Like you hit the problem head on so it didn't become an issue, and a great friendship and a trust happened because of that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really good. So, Dad, I know in our family we have entrepreneurs. I always tell people I'm an entrepreneur. I think I've got my dad's blood because you're an entrepreneur. But
Right.
you said today you think you're we're an entrepreneur because of someone in our family.
My great grandfather and my grandfather. Yes. Well, going back, my great grandfather in Brewster, Washington, owned and ran the livery stable, owned and was partner on the steamship company that used to do shipments of apples up and down the Columbia River. This all was before the train line came in. And once that happened, it took away. They stopped the steamship and a lot of the livery stable business, and so they just did other things.
So sometimes it's about filling a need, but then that need's not there anymore. So then you have to you have to redirect yourself. You have to figure out what you're going to do next that's going to fill another need, right?
Exactly. And that's kind of what we did on our business. Like I said before, we started producing audiovisual training materials for the healthcare field and became a board game and jigsaw puzzle company, which are not all that related.
Right. But an opportunity presented itself and you saw it. And you realize that was something you should do. I think that people get presented opportunities all the time and they don't see it because their eyes are blinded or they're not looking. But even if you're not looking, sometimes an opportunity presents itself and you have to jump on it. You those are the people that make it. Those are the people that become the entrepreneurs that take a chance, that take a risk. And it's not easy. Being an entrepreneur is not easy. It's easier to just go punch a clock, show up for work, punch a clock when you get done, no worries, you just do your job while you're there.
And then complain about a job you're unhappy in.
Right, or complain that you never have any money because you're told how much money you're going to make. Right. Whereas an entrepreneur, you can make as much money as you want to work hard for, right?
Exactly.
I know in my business, one part of it, if I was selling show cards to country clubs and that kind of died out, I would just go in a different direction and look and see who might need signs. At one point I ended up doing soccer banners for all the local soccer teams.
Oh.
And I stayed very busy at that. And it was really exciting because it was something local and it's for the children, and I really enjoyed doing that. I knew how many banners I needed to complete to make it every month. And I could be encouraging to some of the poor soccer moms that were terrified of the whole thing. But, I just changed my direction.
Yeah. Yes. You knew that one was ending, so you just looked to see something else that you could fit a need for. Yeah. What about money? What about startup money? What about like in direct sales? There's not that much of a startup in any direct sales company. Or in network marketing company, there's really not that much of a risk. I mean, normally even $1,000, but way more than that, less than that usually. If somebody wants to go in, full bore, $1,000 is usually what they do. But what is it about starting a business and the risk of the money situation, and how do you manage those times when you know that you might not have the money coming in, and you still have to pay all your bills, and you still have to pay for your kids, and all that. So how did you manage that, Dad?
Our house was in hock for pretty much all the time we were in business. We did bank loans, and the bank, of course, won't loan you money unless you don't need it, more or less. And so we had to put our house up for security, collateral, and everything in the business was all the inventory and all the equipment and everything was up as collateral.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in a very seasonal business, so most of our business came at the last part of the year, and we had to tough through the time of the business, the lean times in the spring and summer when we really didn't have a huge amount of business. So I had to learn how to manage that,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to learn how to educate the bankers on our business.
Oh.
So that was a learning process for me also.
And for them.
Mm-hmm. True. And it happened very often because, as you probably are aware, people don't stay in banks for a long time, in one position in a bank for very long.
Oh, so it wasn't like you had a personal banker that was with you through your whole career of owning your business.
No.
You had lots of people you had to deal with.
And occasionally I'd change banks because one bank wouldn't fill our needs where another one might.
So, the one thing that is different about direct sales and network marketing is you don't really have to invest a lot of money, and you don't have to put your house up as collateral to be able to do the business. And I think that, because what you guys did, that was huge risk. I mean, you put the biggest thing that you owned, your home, where your children lived and where you lived, and that security, that's a scary thing when you put that up for collateral. But because you believed in what you were doing so much, you did it, because that's what entrepreneurs do. That's the difference between people that are successful and not successful are those kind of things. And I feel very blessed to be in network marketing and direct sales. And anybody that's listening to this, if you're in direct selling or network marketing, that's the one biggest thing that I see that's a difference. Because it doesn't cost you very much, and you can have a very thriving business for years and years and years to come if you do all those other things that you guys have talked about already.
Right. It's heavier on the investment of time side than the investment of money.
Right, it's the investment of time. Time and
energy and effort.
Yes, time and energy and effort. That's exactly right. So thank you. Is there anything else have you been thinking of something else that you want to say before we end the podcast?
Just never give up. Just follow your dream and continue on no matter what. No matter what. Lew took me down to the beach one time to tell me that he thought that we had lost our home because his business was having so much problems. And I said, no, we haven't. We'll work nights if we have to.
Right.
This isn't going to go down the tubes. We're going to do it no matter what.
So you're going to do it no matter what, and then you find a way. Like if you guys both had to work nighttime jobs, you would have done it. Mm-hmm. And I know that I've done that. I've worked 3 jobs at once. I went to beauty school, and I worked at night. And I mean, I did that exact thing. Mm-hmm. And you were willing to do that because you believed in what you were doing. Oh, and you believed in each other, which is amazing. And that's why you guys have been married 51 years, right? And it wasn't always easy.
No.
Right things aren't always easy.
No, but not quitting.
Yeah.
Keep pursuing. Keep on. My saying is keep on, keep it on. It's right there on my wall, right in front of us.
That's what I had in my shop for years.
Did you?
Yeah. Keep on keeping on. That's right.
Because you see
And
that
I had
every
a
day.
cat, and it was holding a picture of a cat holding onto a bar. It said, "Hang in there, baby."
I remember that poster.
And once in a while, I look up there. I go, "Okay,
Okay, I can hang in there, right?
If that cat can do it, I can do it."
All right. Dad, is there anything you want to say in our parting?
No, just I think we've said it basically. I just determination and keep moving forward. And if you come up against a brick wall, find a way around it.
Well, we also had a Christian partnership. We had a lot of help from the Lord through the years.
Yes.
For our strength to do all these things.
Yes.
It makes it sound like it's us, but it's not really just us by any means.
I agree with you, and I find that too. I know that God is my partner.
Yeah.
He's got my back. And
Exactly.
you guys felt that way too.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That makes a big difference
Yeah.
when you have that.
We have
faith.
people praying for us in our church and different things through hard times. And
Yeah.
you're not in it alone.
No.
When I look back on my life, I realize that God was watching over me, even though I might not have been paying a whole lot of attention to Him. And I found that the more attention I pay to Him, the more attention He pays to me.
Or you notice it because you're looking.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, that's really great. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening. I hope that you really can pick up some fantastic, fabulous nuggets of information and wisdom from this podcast. Always drop me a line if you have any questions or you just want to tell your dad and Sue we really appreciated this podcast if you want. So thank you for listening. Until next time, this is Jeri Taylor-Swade signing off.
Thank you for tuning in. If you would like to hear more from Jeri, subscribe to the Cuppa with the Queen podcast, where you will learn more about how you can grow your own home-based business. Find Jeri at jeritaylorSwade.com and on Facebook at Cuppa with the Queen.